Hey there, you're listening to the Automated Thought Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Inez, and I help coaches, speakers, authors, consultants, and thought leaders generate more leads and nurture leads with marketing automation. So come join me as I demystify technology one episode at a time. Now let's get into it. I know it's been a while, but I just want to give you something that has been on my mind for a while. So I have a lot of topics queued up to talk to you about, but I think that this one is so important and timely just because we're embracing another season. As of this recording, it is August 18th. So that means that in another month, we're going to be transitioning into fall. So I don't know about you, but I don't like the cold weather. Even though sometimes I do like the fall, I don't like the sudden dip in temperatures, and I definitely do not like the change in lighting. But like the seasons, things need to change, and change is inevitable. And so what I'm going to talk about is embracing change with grace and leaving space for change. And the reason why I want to talk to you about leaving space for change is because no matter what, you're going to have to either change the tools that you're using, the processes that you're using, the people that you work with, or even the things that you do in your own business. Everything has momentum and shifts and ebbs and flows. So it's so important to recognize this as a reality and be prepared for it in the best way that you can. So without further ado, I'm just going to talk about it. I'm going to give a couple examples. So I gave an example about the weather, right? Pretty soon I'm going to have to pack away the sundresses and the sandals and, some of the lighter outfits that I have. And I'm going to have to bring out the sweaters, the long sleeves, and the scarves. But when you're like on the verge of change, you need to make sure that you have factored in that buffer period, that grace to say, okay, well, things are going to be a little uncomfortable, a little haywire at times. So like the seasons, you may have days of unseasonably warm weather or cool weather, and you may need to pivot really quickly and make some last minute adjustments based on the day. And that's how it is in life. But let's talk about it from technology. So I want to bring you all the way back to 2019. And that's when I had my first CRM change. I've changed CRMs so many times right now. I'm so used to migrating from one platform to another. But this was earlier on when I was, let's say, less patient than I am now about changing platforms and changing software. So I'm changing these platforms, and I noticed as I went from Active Campaign to Keep, now I'm on High Level. Doesn't matter, name's not important. But as I shifted the platforms, I noticed that there were a lot of things that I was so adamant and used to doing in the old platform that when I started using the new platform, I was actually quite upset that certain features didn't work the right way. And I was so adamant and in a rush on getting the new platform set up that I was so frustrated and I was ready to throw in the towel on the new platform altogether. I said, I don't know how this is a thing. I don't know how this is selling. I don't know why people are using this. It doesn't do the things I need it to do. And I got really flustered, and I spent a long time, longer than I needed to, in that state of frustration, just because I did not leave that space for change. And leaving space for change is not only for yourself as a business owner, but as a team member as well. I notice a lot of business owners who have teams, or vice versa, people who are on teams. It's not all about one person anymore. You have to factor in the skill sets and the processes and the flows and the desires of multiple people. But at the end of the day, it's incumbent upon the business owner to select the software, to select the processes, to set the tone, and to set the process for change. So leaving space for change is crucial, in my opinion. Leaving that time, that buffer period, so that you can get used to doing something brand new and you can bring others along with you. So kind of going back to my example, I struggled for a very long time with this new piece of software. I think I was doing some automations that weren't quite doing it the same way. So I had to say, okay, how can I get the same result using the tools that this new platform has? Because I wasn't going to change my strategy. I wasn't going to say, well, I'm not going to set up this automation like I did before. My funnels needed to work, my lead magnets needed to work, my webinars, events, and et cetera, all needed to work the same way. I was not budging or compromising on that. But what I realized is that this is not going to happen as quickly as I had hoped. So I hunkered down and I said, okay, well, obviously people are using this with success. So they might be seeing something that I'm not seeing. So I had to then go and take the time to do that. But I'm kind of a different case because I dabble in software all the time. So what happens when someone who doesn't like technology has to also now put their heads down and say, okay, well, how am I going to make this work? How am I going to get used to this new process, a new system, without driving myself crazy? And how am I going to bring my team along to use this new thing when the old thing was working just fine? Or even if the old thing wasn't just working just fine, you knew how to work that old thing, and now the new thing is complex. Well, just kind of giving space for change. So first, acknowledge and accept it. So just like the seasons, right? We have 4 seasons, especially up here in New York City. So we have to, kind of go with it. We cannot stop the progression of the calendar, and you cannot stop the progression of the things you might need to do in your life or business. And I'll give you another example that does not involve software. So let's say you were used to offering one product or services, and now you no longer want to do that, and now you want to offer something else. It's going to take time for your followers and your leads and your audience to catch up to the new thing that you're doing. Quite often, I get contacted for the services that I used to provide that I no longer do. And so knowing that, I said, okay, well, how can I target my messaging around the things that I do now, and also giving space and grace for those opportunities for the old things that I used to do to still come in. And what I mean by that is now I make referrals for some of the things that I no longer do. I refer them out, but I'm able to serve and pivot at the same time. And that comes with leaving that space. So you want to leave that buffer. You want to make sure that you allow yourself to have that moment of, okay, this is uncertain. Let me spend a couple of minutes or an hour, a day, or a week getting used to your new direction while operating in what you used to do or your old system. So that is just one thing. Acknowledge and accept the change. And then the next thing is to communicate effectively. So kind of going back in my own stories, I can talk about stories from clients, and I can talk about stories from the corporate world. So in the corporate world, this is even more important because now you have large teams of people, you have large departments. And in some of my old jobs, what would happen is that we'd get a new vice president or a new senior manager or somebody new in charge, and they're like, okay, we're going to get rid of everything we used to do, and now we're going to do it my way. And it was really their way of putting their stamp on that department. When the leadership changed, we was like, okay, well, now we have a process already, but now we do need to yield to this new leader. So how can we still keep going? Because we still had to keep doing our work, but at the same time, we had to get to know and learn something completely new. And I think as a leader, you need to communicate effectively. You need to make sure that people understand why a change or why a direction is the way it is. And I think in some of my old jobs and my old businesses, what tend to happen is that communication was non-existent. So that led me to believe that a lot of the changes were just because, that person wanted to change and not necessarily because the change was warranted. So you really need to make sure that if you're working within a team, whether you are the team leader, the business leader, or a team member, you actively communicate, you make it really clear and transparent what your needs are and what your struggles are and what your concerns are, so that as a group, as a collaborative, you can come together and make it work. And making it work does not mean that the direction changes, but the approach to it could change. Maybe there is a longer period for training. Maybe there is a longer period for the migration to a new platform. These are things that can be done effectively on a team. And I've even seen it in some of my past corporate clients too, where the company had decided to go with our company for the email marketing system or CRM or the thing that we had provided. And it just took a while to get their entire team on board. Now, in project management, we call people who are affected by a project stakeholders. So these could be the company itself, this can be the market, this can be investors and customers and employees. So in project management, we call certain people negative stakeholders, people who are rooting against the project or people who do not want the project to move forward or have some objections in some ways. So you need to learn about who your negative stakeholders are. And part of the communication is getting them on your side, getting them to at least see part of the vision, if not all of the vision, and factoring some time in for that. So when I was onboarding clients onto our new system, it wasn't the decision-making person that I needed to onboard. It was everyone else affected, all the other stakeholders affected by the decision. So it used to be the employees and the customers. And, when we had to set up their email campaigns and some of the larger automations on this new platform, yes, there were some people that said, oh, well, I don't understand why it doesn't do this effectively. I'm frustrated that it can't do that effectively. Well, what about this? And maybe there was some internal mumblings about the time it takes to get used to something brand new. But the decision has still been made. So even from my point of view, I couldn't just cheerlead for the change because I did not co-sign on it. But at the end of the day, I was the one in charge of onboarding. So I had to hear those concerns and I had to address them, acknowledge them, and then work through them. But as a leader, as someone who has made a decision, your role and responsibility is still the same too. It's about making sure that you give people psychological space to understand why a change has been made, and then to have that psychological safety to address their concerns and things like that. So communication goes a long way. And if you're a solopreneur, here's where communication can help you, because maybe you don't have a team, maybe you don't have people that report into you, maybe you're not reporting into anybody else, the decision is solely yours. So as a solopreneur, this is especially more important because you are moving at the speed of your own processes and your own thoughts and your own implementation, but you don't want to move too fast. You still want to give yourself enough space and grace as you would, if you had a larger team or a team at all. So what I mean by that is when you are going to make a decision, make sure you have a team around you, a coach or a community, some supporters that can help you in your decision. And then when it comes to systems, you can always reach out to tech support. You can always reach out to the pre-sales team before you make a decision. Ask about the features that are in alignment with your vision. And then once you make a decision, give yourself enough space to sit in that decision and try to make it work before switching gears again. Because there's another concept that I want to introduce you to. It's called switching costs. And switching costs is the time it takes to go from one platform or one direction to another. And when I say there's a cost, sometimes it could be a financial cost, sometimes it can be an energy cost, sometimes it can be a cost in time. It's usually a cost in time. So the more switches you have, the more it's going to cost you in the long run each time you do switch. So you want to make sure that your decisions are solid, grounded, and when you make a decision, then you commit to it for a certain amount of time, make it work, see it through before abandoning it and switching gears. And then one of the other things that I can suggest, I'm just looking at my notes here, is providing that training and support. So whether you have a team or you are your own team, you want to make sure that you pad in and factor that time for training and support. It is so important because if people don't feel supported, it's like, okay, well, not only do I not know why this decision was made, but I'm kind of on my own trying to figure out what to do next. And a lot of systems will provide that training and support. Now, when I talk to some of my clients about the switch that they've made for their CRMs or whatever system that they're a part of, oftentimes one of the biggest complaints that I hear is, okay, I switched and I thought I was going to be getting this support, but really I am getting less support. And it's really important before you make a decision to understand what support is going to be available and what it's going to look like and how often it's going to be available to you. So let me give you an example. I recently had a client who switched over to a new CRM, and they said, okay, well, I switched over to the CRM. I was sold on this thing. They said there would be support. But then when I tried to set up a campaign, their support wouldn't show me how to do it. And then I said, well, the support that was sold to you is to support the stability of the product, meaning you can log in and you can set up campaigns. But when it comes to how to use their software or how to achieve a certain result, then that goes into some of their more agency services, and that's an upsell. And the person that I was working with finally understood that that's what that meant. And that's why before affecting any change, you need to really understand, okay, what is this going to look like in the long run, short term, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months out, and what support is going to be available and what it's going to look like. So I've heard from a lot of disappointed people that they thought they were going to get their hands held through a particular piece of software or CRM, only to realize that no, the people that they are paying to provide support are really to just ensure that the platform is available as it is and is working to be the platform in which their customers can build things on, but they're not going to show people how to build things. So that is just one example. And then, the last thing I'm going to kind of talk about is that patience and flexibility, right? You just want to be patient. You want to be flexible. So the more inflexible you are, the more disappointed you're going to be. So not everything is going to transition smoothly. There are going to be some bumps in the road. Some things are going to be imperfect. That is okay. So if you are switching systems and things are going out a little imperfectly, maybe a little maybe it doesn't have all the bells and whistles of the thing that you're used to or the thing that you thought you were going to set up. Remember that change and progress is incremental. So you want to make sure that if this is good enough to do now, it doesn't mean that you can't go back and change it, right? It doesn't mean that you can't work on it later. But you want to make sure that you're not setting yourself up for failure by expecting too much too soon. So the biggest takeaways that I can tell you about is to embrace change as an opportunity, right? Whether you're pivoting to a new service, product, or market, you want to give yourself time to do the research. You want to give yourself time to adjust your messaging. You want to give yourself enough time to just be known for that new thing. If you're going to switch software or tools or even people that you're working with, you want to give yourself enough time to learn the tool. You want to give yourself enough time to communicate its effectiveness if it has multiple stakeholders that are affected. And you want to just give yourself enough time to get used to it yourself and to commit to it. Then continue to communicate and support when necessary. And then lastly, just be patient. You got this. It's going to work out, because at the end of the day, if you have a solid strategy and you've committed to it, no matter what, you're going to find something that sticks. It's something that you can stick to. So think about how you reflect on how you've handled changes in the past and how you can give yourself a little bit more grace and positivity. So what I want to leave you with is, if you have not yet had a chance to download my free training, Funnel Automation Magic, it is available to you for free. So what it is, it's a series of short little videos that introduce you to the concepts of marketing funnels and how you can implement and use it in your business. And I talk a lot about choosing the right systems and the right strategies and all these tools I may have thrown out there. And you're like, okay, great. How do I get started? How you get started is writing it down and making it so simple that you can give that sheet of paper to anybody. And I show you how to do this in my step-by-step process and Funnel Automation Magic. So I'll leave you with that. It has been a pleasure. Again, my name is Kimberly Inez Mays. You can reach me at KimberlyInezMays.com, and you can find my socials under the same handle. Until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye.